Now, I'm very pleased to introduce tonight Dr. Maria Cantillini-Williams, the Dean of the Faculty of Education at Laurier University, who will introduce tonight's speaker. Welcome, Dr. Maria.
Thank you, Sheila. So tonight's talk is called Hey Siri, How Did You Do That? Computational Thinking and Digital Fluency. Our world has become increasingly complex, with most day-to-day decisions requiring at least some digital literacy. Computational thinking, or an approach to problem solving that uses a logical framework that allows a computer to solve the problem, has become a fundamental skill for learning and future success. Talk will explore what skills are required for this type of thinking and how they're represented across the elementary curriculum and in teacher preparation. Dr. Mueller is a professor and associate dean with the Faculty of Education at Laurier. I'm really, truly grateful that Julie has assumed this role for the past 2 years. She's led our Faculty of Education with competence, with compassion and care, especially given the challenges of the current pandemic. I'm quite sure that Julie has applied computational thinking approaches to address the many problems that we have faced, but have also solved successfully. Julie was an elementary school teacher with the Waterloo Region District School Board for over a decade. Her PhD in social and developmental psychology at Laurier. Julie's research investigates the integration of technology in teaching and learning with a current emphasis on computational thinking as a way of innovative problem solving. Her passion for active living has led her to also explore the use of exercise bikes in classrooms and flexible learning spaces, which she has very enthusiastically implemented in both our university setting and in local schools. And now I'm pleased to pass the virtual talking stick to Dr. Julie Mueller. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maria, for that introduction. And thank you to all of those who are involved in providing this series. Sheila from the Waterloo Public Library, Charlene and Taylor from Laurier, and my colleagues who have already presented or will present in the coming months. So I am going to be using slides to support my talk this evening. So I will start sharing my screen now, and you may want to adjust your view so that you are able to see those slides more readily. So I wanted to start our conversation tonight with not a traditional land acknowledgement, but a continuation of the appreciation that I just shared. I'm happy that I'm able to refer to a land acknowledgement as traditional in the sense that it has become an important and common aspect of what we do at Laurier. What I would like to incorporate tonight is an approach to reconciliation, to use the practice of land acknowledgement to not just demonstrate gratitude, but to begin or continue to develop a habit of mind of reconciliation, to both know and to feel. So I know that the land I am on tonight is located on the Haldimand Tract, traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. This land is part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples and symbolizes the agreement to share, protect our resources, and not to engage in conflict. I also feel a connection to this land as a citizen of rural Wilmont Township, and I'm blessed to have been able to do much of my thinking and composition of this talk on some of that land that you see here that was shared with the township by the Schmidt family. Many of you may have listened to the first two lectures in this series and will appreciate the importance of storytelling in a lecture, of knowing who the storyteller is as you listen, and for the storyteller to know who their listeners are. Thank you, Dr. Kathy Miata, for your expertise in this area. In this format tonight, I have the privilege of being able to share my story, but it's challenging to know to whom I'm speaking. I know there were 70 some people registered for the talk, so you know you're a part of a group that size and interest. There are often fewer number who attend the talk. I know what was shared in promotion of the talk and where it was shared, so I can make some assumptions about who may be out there. And I am going to ask you to interact with me this evening at several points throughout the talk in a digital way, if you are so inclined. So if you have a smartphone handy or another device or even a second screen besides your Zoom screen, it would be wonderful if you were able to take part and contribute to our collaborative knowledge construction. I will also be talking about some organizations with resources that you may want to search online. My story in education began, as Maria said, here in Waterloo region, where I taught elementary classes and physical education from kindergarten to grade 6 for nearly a decade. After I became a mother, I switched to part-time teaching, searching for a balance between work and home. It didn't take me long to realize that my work was also my passion, and it wasn't shut off at the door. Watching my children develop only broadened my curiosity and my I wonders about how children learn, and I soon began my graduate work in the quest to answer these questions in a digital age. While completing my doctorate in developmental psychology here at Laurier, the Faculty of Education was created, and I found a natural bridge between my teaching and my research. I began as a founding faculty member in this collaborative venture between the university and our incredible partner school boards, and I've grown with the faculty from a Bachelor of Education program, what many of you will know as Teachers College, to a faculty with a thriving Master of Education, a minor in education, and most recently, our Bachelor of Arts in International Education Studies in partnership with Global Studies, headed by Dr. Steve Sider, who spoke with Judy Halpern in the first talk in this series. The research component of my work has also developed to most recently culminate in being part of the organizing committee of the new Center for Leading Research in Education, affectionately known as CLEARY, an interdisciplinary collective of researchers working for academics, education partners, community organizations, and industry partners to answer those I wonder questions that keep me up at night. I will sprinkle our conversation tonight with some of these answers and hopefully provoke some I wonder questions for you. As Sheila mentioned, you are welcome to submit questions that I can address at the end of the talk. If you have questions throughout, I encourage you to write them down or perhaps send a tweet mentioning at Laurier EdU or at jmuellerprof, as you see written on the slide here, our Faculty of Education Twitter account, and my own. I find it challenging to tweet, advance slides, and talk all at the same time. This is not necessarily a function of my age, but rather research suggests none of us really multitask efficiently, but we rather task switch, often losing time and focus in doing so. So I will keep my focus on our conversation tonight and let you share your thoughts as you see fit in the Twitter sphere through our interactive tasks or in our question period at the end. I'm going to start with what may have brought you here tonight. The question I asked in this promotional slide. Hey Siri, how did you do that? Hey Siri, how did you do that?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, Siri, you will by the time you are done tonight. So although we are living in a digital age, Siri may not be able to answer all of your questions. Our questions and problems can be complex and ambiguous. If we want computers to help us answer our questions or solve our problems, we need to understand how they think and speak their language. That is part of being literate in a digital age. If we use the analogy of driving, we can begin to understand why we might need not just to know what a computer is, but how it works. We can all drive our cars without being mechanics with an intimate knowledge of what happens under the hood, just as we can all use our computers now without being computer programmers or scientists. The technical aspects of using a computer, the syntax, the coding, the memory, etc., have been hidden behind windows or touch screens or even voice commands that understand plain language. So do we really need to know the mechanics of an automobile to drive or the programming of a computer to type? Well, if I understand how my car works, I'm better able to troubleshoot when something doesn't work. I can make a more informed and critical choice in buying a car and may even be able to contribute to the improvement of aspects of the car so it works better for me. If I understand how a computer works, I may be better able to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. I may be able to make a better informed and critical choice in what I spend my money on. I may even be able to customize my computer to work more efficiently and adapt it to my particular uses. Our evolving digital age increasingly demands a larger and larger portion of our society is literate in digital technology, and the current global pandemic has just amplified that need. To be successful in our new virtual world, we're going to need to become digitally fluent, not just as consumers, but as users and creators of digital technology and solutions to complex problems. That means education needs to address computational thinking as a foundation to problem solving in the K-12 curriculum and in teacher preparation. Let's speak to Siri again and ask a question with less ambiguity in a language he might understand. Hey Siri, what is digital fluency?
I found this on the web.
Siri has an answer for us this time. If you have your phone handy, or a Google Home or a search engine on your laptop, take a second now and search the same question and see what you find. What is digital fluency? So the very first hit from my Siri search is from the Digital Learning Collaborative, posted on March 16th, 2020. Ironically, the day that the university closed due to the pandemic, perhaps a foreshadowing of the importance of this fluency to come. Digital fluency is defined in two parts. First, looking at the term fluency, derived from the word flow. And when we think about being fluent in any context, it refers to being flexible, accurate, efficient, and appropriate. In other words, the way we use skills, language, and speech flows naturally and easily. And that is a quote from my hit on Siri here. In other words, the way we use skills, language, and speech flows naturally and easily. For instance, you may be familiar with French from limited exposure in elementary school, or literate in French from several courses in secondary school. But in order to be fluent, you would need to use French in multiple contexts, as well as through explicit learning opportunities, so that it flows naturally and easily, and you're able to think in French and not just translate. The second part of the term then refers to the digital aspect, which this blog suggests means using technology readily and strategically to learn, to work, to play. Digital fluency is a combination of digital proficiency, being able to understand, choose, use appropriate technologies and systems. Digital literacy, cognitive competency to read, create, evaluate using digital technologies, and apply technical skills. A third aspect is fluency, including the social competence or dispositional knowledge, being able to relate to others in a digital context and address moral and social questions related to digital technologies. So the whole idea of digital citizenship and social media morals and practices and etiquette, which I won't get into tonight, but is certainly a part of being fluent in a digital world. So this type of fluency parallels the change and expansion of the internet. As we moved from Web 0.0, where the internet was used as a transmission tool, so the majority of users were passive consumers, to Web 2.0 that added interaction, requiring users to develop skills for responding and interacting in a limited way. For example, adding comments to a blog, uploading a photo to Facebook, downloading a recipe, an increased level of digital literacy, to what we call Web 3.0 that allows users to create and contribute, to add their own websites on this massive network, to customize their search experiences, to utilize big data sets and artificial intelligence to solve problems, create knowledge in a much more profound and complex way. This requires a fluency that goes beyond understanding and application to wisdom and evaluation. So this type of fluency is what we strive for in developing digital citizens who can fully participate in this ever-changing digital context. So the larger picture then, or the overarching construct I'm presenting tonight, is digital fluency. It's part of what you may often hear discussed and presented as 21st century learning skills, global competencies, or complex problem solving. The 4 C's, communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration, or the 6 C's, where U of T's Michael Fullan adds character and citizenship in his pedagogies for deep learning. These frameworks can be overwhelming if we try to break them down into competencies or a list of learning outcomes in curriculum for elementary or secondary education. I suggest that a more authentic way to manage and address digital fluency is to look at ways of thinking. So one critical way of knowing in a digital age is becoming more and more important for a larger and larger percentage of our population. So computational thinking is not brand new. It's just that a larger and larger number of us need to utilize it. So let's take a moment. This is where you need to interact. Walk through your day and see if you can count how many different interactions you've had with a digital device. So use a methodical journey of time and place. I'm going to begin my journey as I woke up this morning. So I woke up to an alarm from my cell phone that had been set in bedtime setting. So it automatically shuts off at midnight and opens with an alarm at 7 a.m. When I picked up my phone to shut it off, I received notifications from at least 3 different apps that came in overnight. I started my laptop to open my digital calendar to ensure I knew what meetings I had, with links to virtual platforms where they would be held, some in Zoom, some in Teams. I was sent a report from Cortana of emails that suggested tasks I should attend to today. And then I opened my presentation for tonight, reviewed the slides, checked links to several different platforms within the slides, and so on. So we're past 6 interactions, and this is in the first hour of my day. Your day may look quite different than mine, but I imagine many of you had more than 1 or 2 interactions with a digital device before you logged into this event tonight. Most of the uses that I quickly counted required some amount of computational thinking. So it's important. Okay, it's time for you to engage once again. And this time, I get to see what you are thinking. So if you have a device with you, I want you to go to this website, www.menti.com. Type that in and use the code. It will prompt you for a code, 1941-2712. And we're going to do a little word association to create a cloud of our collective knowledge. So you'll be presented with a text box for 3 different responses to the term computational thinking. Go ahead and try it. You can add 1 word or up to 3 and hit submit. And I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. Okay, so hopefully we do have a cloud. You're out there. I'm happy to see. So the kinds of things that you think of when I say computational thinking, you say logic, computer, problem solving, order, logical, strategy, computer logic. We've got a lot of logic happening here. Problem solving, directions, stepwise. Somebody's doing some analysis. Calculate, solutions, thinking, strategies, systems. So a lot of this, again, is not new. This is the kind of problem solving that we have always had available and needed to use, but now we need to integrate that with our digital devices. Excellent. Thanks for taking part. So if we look at the definition in the literature of computational thinking, some of the words that you mentioned, you may see here: problem solving, logical, experimenting. So the literature related to computational thinking and its prevalence in education beyond computer science is generally accredited to Jeanette Wing, who suggested in 2006 that learners outside of computer science needed to learn the many skills that computer scientists use in solving problems. In 2010, Wing suggested that computer thinking, and I'll call it CT from now on, is the thought processes involved in formulating problems and their solutions so that the solutions are represented in a form that can be effectively carried out by an information processing agent. So this presents CT as not necessarily belonging exclusively to computer science or even necessarily requiring a computer, but some form of information processing agent, and that could be a person. Many think about CT as computer coding, but if we consider CT to be a way of thinking, it is much broader than that. Rather than a computer skill, it is a way of thinking across subject areas or a specific approach to problem solving that may or may not include a computer encoding. It is using a logical process to solve a problem. It's decomposing problems, creating algorithms, these step-by-step solutions, testing them, debugging, seeing why something didn't work, trying again, iterating. As displayed in the slide here, in Brennan and Resnick's framework, it involves concepts, so the what, like sequences and loops, the skills, so the doing, like experimenting and iterating, and perspectives, like connecting and questioning or an approach. All of these concept skills and perspectives can certainly and perhaps readily be taught through coding, but also through what is affectionately referred to as unplugged activities. So writing functional instructions, reading a recipe. All of these things may require that algorithmic step-by-step approach. Using your GPS. That is using a computer, but you can take the same approach looking at a map. Right? So what might learners be doing when we think about CT across disciplines or subject areas? It may be more obvious in something like computer science, where learners are actually conducting analysis or debugging code, but those same concepts and skills can be seen in social studies, as learners identify trends in population growth or reroute a map to avoid construction. Perhaps even less obvious in language, when they analyze the structure of a sentence in a grammar class, coding words as parts of speech, or testing a thesis in a written essay. So what does computational thinking look like for young learners? We asked this research question in a study culminating in a paper entitled Hiding in Plain Sight. So what does computational thinking and problem solving look like in K-8 learning? We turn to expectations in the curriculum, the outcomes that are listed by the Ontario Ministry of Education in all subject areas, and the material from which teachers work backwards to plan lessons and then to assess and evaluate learning. So what is it that students are learning? So to investigate where CT exists in the curriculum, we actually used computational thinking to move from what we started with a very tedious manual search, word by word, in a find and next procedure, putting each keyword into the find box and moving from word to word, to a very quick and accurate scan using Python code. It told the computer what we wanted. Search through each document, looking for this list of words, and the list included many of the terms from the definitions presented on the last slide. So in other words, we wanted to find where do the CT concepts and skills already exist in the curriculum. Although the full term, computational thinking, did not explicitly appear in the curriculum, computational concepts, practices, and perspectives were embedded in all the subject areas. For example, the Health and Phys Ed document refers to questioning in the front matter, the opening of the curriculum document. And the quote, "Are questioning techniques being used to reveal meaning and to encourage student engagement in, reflection about, and sense of responsibility for learning?" The language document refers to sequence. Make revisions to improve the content, clarity, and interest of the written work using several types of strategy. Excuse me for 1 minute. Thank you. The mathematics document referred to connecting, make connections among mathematical concepts and procedures. And finally, the science and technology document referred to testing, when making or experimenting with and testing devices or structures. Oops. So in this table of frequencies, we see that the concepts related to computational thinking were mostly found in mathematics, not surprising, but also quite frequently in social studies. Here. And notably, in French and arts even more frequently than science and technology. However, the terminology describing the skills and practices, so those doing pieces of computational thinking, were really only found in the science curriculum. So that is a gap, perhaps, in the explicit skills that need to be taught around computational thinking. The frequencies of perspectives or approaches required for computational thinking were spread more evenly across disciplines, but most frequently in language curriculum, both French and English. So where those terms were found was also interesting. The language curriculum hits were found mostly in what are called the overall expectations. So that's the learning outcomes. What is it that you need to be teaching about? The front matter, the arts hits were found more often in the front matter. So the overall expectations are the what we're teaching about, while the front matter is the how they are learning it, the approaches taken by the teacher to teach, assess, and evaluate that content. So the distribution across both areas of the curriculum document suggests that there is consideration of teaching about computational thinking as well as teaching through a computational thinking way. Specifically, however, the word computational does frequently appear in the mathematics curriculum, which may contribute to the perception that CT is only about mathematics. While teachers may not be overtly aware of CT in the curriculum, students are already being exposed to these concepts and perspectives. This supports the view that coding could be an accessible and important mode for creating rich learning environments that facilitate that development of CT as a more explicit way of thinking across disciplines. Since the examination of the curriculum, the mathematics curriculum has been updated to include specific expectations related to coding. So we would see some of that more specific language. The Ministry of Education in Ontario chose to house the explicit teaching of computational thinking in the mathematics curriculum through coding. And here you can see on the left, Dr. Gadenitis at Western provides a terrific overview of how coding connects with mathematics at the K-8 level in this research monograph. And it was actually released before coding was added to the mathematics curriculum that was just launched this fall. It's important to note that the overall expectations are found in the algebra strand of mathematics and are similar across grades. So you can see here moving from writing and using code for sequences in grade 1, perhaps coding using Scratch to move a character across a screen or draw a shape, to using much more complex code for data analysis in decision making in grade 8. So perhaps making predictions from models based on data from simulations for the COVID spread. What an authentic way to analyze data and make predictions. So if we recognize computational thinking's connection to problem solving and existence in current curriculum expectations, we must also be able to recognize and assess these skills in order to evaluate their development and measure their transfer. So how do we assess CT? Once again, this I wonder question was addressed through several research studies and subsequent publications. So we wrote a chapter that included a longer tool of questions that match some of the key aspects, the concepts and skills related to computational thinking. So the nature of coding itself provides immediate feedback to the learner. If you write a code, you try it, You use it, it doesn't work, you need to debug it. Conduct iterations until it does. So it's immediate and authentic feedback. However, how you debug, if you can even decompose the problem in the first place, and whether you have the perseverance to continue, can be assessed by an observer, often the teacher, but could be peers. This assessment tool addresses the key skills of computational thinking with a set of questions the teacher can ask that students can ask themselves or their peers in analyzing CT. For example, if a student is asked to create an algorithm or a set of rules using code to measure CO2 emissions with a microbit and a sensor, a teacher may observe their work and initially look to see if they even understand what is being asked. Can they decompose the problem? What variables need to be included in the code? What has to be measured? Are they able then to provide an efficient code that removes unnecessary information? Do they continue to make changes if it doesn't work? Are they strategic about those changes? Only by analyzing all aspects of computational thinking can a teacher meet the learner where they are and scaffold further learning to build those understanding skills and perspectives. In order to make the learning visible, we also asked participants in one of our summer camps to think out loud while they were designing code to direct one of Inksmith's Kate robots to follow a path. So Inksmith is one of my lab's early partners in this research, and I want to send them a shout out for the grants they have worked on with us and the incredible work they do to support teachers and learners in developing global competencies. Their Kate robot is just one aspect of their educational technology and learning kits that they've developed and shared with our local schools and internationally. Here you can see the thinking of these two learners as they share what they are thinking while they decompose their problem and test their solutions. Some more explicit and direct ways of measuring CT include the ancient Tower of Hanoi puzzle that's been used to measure problem-solving ability for years, not digital, not related to computational thinking in a digital fluency sense. And I have it here opposite a more recent 28-item CT quiz developed and tested by Marcos Roman Gonzalez and colleagues that we've used in a research study with students in our local Catholic school board. We had children try the Tower of Hanoi, thinking out loud as they did it, as well as the quiz. And we found a really strong correlation between their problem solving with the tower, the concrete puzzle, and their overall scores on the CT quiz. Unfortunately, we can't try the concrete Tower of Hanoi puzzle together here on our virtual platform, but I encourage you to search out a digital version and give it a try. And I do have the concrete version here, so I'm hoping that you can see this. The goal is to move the disc from peg 1 to peg 3, one at a time, never putting a larger disc on top of a smaller one. So watch and see if you can design an algorithm that would work if we add another disc. So I'm just using 3. This is the easy version of the problem. Solving an easier problem first is a good strategy. All right, so if we move one at a time, never putting a smaller one on a larger one, and now I've messed up my, so we try it again. What's the iteration? All right. Not the shortest route, but complete. So asking children to think out loud while they do this makes their thinking visible and helps them to articulate what it is they are actually thinking about. Second shout out to Scott McKenzie's class in New Dundee Public School who tried this several years ago. Amazing perseverance and personal challenges from his grade 4 students as they worked through and added more and more of the discs till they were completing it with 7 discs. So thanks again, Scott, for that. All right, you've been sedentary too long. I got to play with the Tower of Hanoi. Let's have you take a chance try your hand at just a few of the questions from the online quiz. So question number 1, and you can write down your answer. We won't do a poll. I'll just write down your answer and we'll share the correct answers after. So question 1 assesses through sequencing using visual arrows as the coding symbol. So choose which instructions, A, B, C, or D, will take Pac-Man to the red ghost by the path marked out. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our correct answer is B. Pac-Man moves to the right 1 square, then down 2 squares to get to the ghost. So you can see how video games such as Pac-Man are not only fun, but can be educational, build perseverance, and automatic feedback for learning. All right, let's try another one. This question is aimed at measuring the ability to debug or find the error using a block coding that includes loops this time. The instructions in the code should make the artist in the picture with the giant pencil down there draw the following rectangle, 50 pixels wide and 100 pixels high. So in which step of the instructions is there a mistake? Step A, step B, step C, or step D? I'll give you a little bit longer this time. We'll take 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. The correct answer this time is step A. We don't need to repeat 4 times because the code includes 2 sides already. So it should only repeat twice or repeat once. All right, let's try a little bit more challenging. This question is based on completion of the block coding with both loops and conditionals, the if-else statements. A little more challenging. Try again, you've got nothing to lose. No prize for first place, just regret if you don't try. In this question, you're asked which step is missing in the instructions to take Pac-Man to the red ghost by the path marked out. So again, we have A, B, C, or D. All right. So the correct answer this time, if you had to guess, always pick C because C is indeed correct. So how did you do? 100%, 66%, 33%, 0? Using your computational mind, what variables do you need to look at to understand what that might mean? There were only 3 questions, so just getting 2 wrong is a failing grade. Could you see the screen okay? Maybe you couldn't read the blurry type. Could you have done it if you had more time? Was it distracting when I counted the first 2 times? What might you do to improve your score next time? Do you need to play some Pac-Man? Do you need to do a tutorial on this Scratch block coding platform? So once we know what we're teaching and how to measure it, we can begin to speak about how to teach it and who's involved. So I want to finish tonight with an overview of some organizations and sources for addressing these important constructs. I'm not going to provide detailed examples of activities or lessons, but rather places and people I've worked with and who you can connect with for further information. So the how-to. We should begin with teacher education, ensuring our teachers are prepared to address emerging curriculum and skills for the future. Let's Talk Science has prepared a document titled Canada 2067, a learning roadmap that addresses an approach to learning that speaks not only to what we learn, the content, but how we learn, learning theory, and how we teach, the pedagogy, the teacher education. For a successful path towards STEM education and contributing global citizens, digital fluency and computational thinking should be addressed in the curriculum content and the approach we take to teaching and how we prepare our teachers to do that, teaching in an inclusive and equitable way. Teacher education, as I noted earlier, needs to infuse this way of thinking across courses, include coding and digital fluency in their outcomes and their course descriptions. As our teacher candidates enter the schools, we strive for reciprocal learning in that our candidates can offer current and emerging skills while their associate teachers assist them in embedding it in appropriate practice. We have initiated a Bring Your Own Associate Teacher series in which we invite our teacher candidates to invite their associate teachers to workshops and learning events, often presented by our local ed tech partners and educators themselves. Let's Talk Science is one of those partners who works in schools with both teachers and students to address global STEM issues and with engaging activities. Now virtually rather than in person, but they've been doing this for years, a very well-established and reputable organization. So I invite you to visit their website. Fair Chance Learning is another more recent Canadian organization that provides in-school instruction for both teachers and students. And they work with support from Microsoft to promote and encourage teacher education in that area. Michael Leonard is one of my partners, the many educators in Waterloo working toward innovation and student engagement through professional learning for teachers. And I'm pointing Michael's approach out because he takes teachers and students learning together when he's introducing new technologies or platforms, much like our approach with the pre-service and in-service teacher education workshops. Google offers a free computer science curriculum for teachers using Scratch platform. Media Smarts provides resources and acts as an advocate for children's digital and media literacy, a national organization providing resources for parents, teachers, kids, and really a very broad look at computational thinking and digital fluency on a much larger scale. So teaching the teachers is good, but we can also add community support and opportunities for engagement at all levels, both within and outside of school. So community and nonprofit organizations provide extracurricular activities through summer camps like Laurier's own LEAP camps that moved to virtual camps the past summer with Launch Waterloo. We have conducted research on the impact of this type of programming with Canada Learning Code, training and workshops driven by volunteers across Canada. HackerGal is a new partner organization I'm working with, founded on girls in STEM, but providing experience and supports for all learners. So these are just a couple of the myriad of organizations that provide learning and resources in STEM, coding, and computational thinking here in Waterloo. And we're so lucky to have an abundance of innovative companies, organizations, incubators that work very closely with our school boards and our faculty of education in research and instruction. And then the best way to teach your children, either as a parent or a teacher, is to learn. So find a coding platform that works for you. Ask Siri or Google to pull some up and get started. There's a range of platforms available, many at no cost, with a whole community of users to support you. Basic graphic or block coding is a drag and drop approach that even very young children catch on to very quickly. Links is a stepping stone from the block coding to full computer programming. It's kind of in between with limited commands, and it's available in English, French, and now 3 Indigenous languages, including Ojibwe. And you'll notice, those of you who are as young as I am will remember the turtle from Seymour Paper's logo programming. And notice also the logo, the Code to Learn organization worked several times within our Faculty of Education over the last 4 years with their CAN code funding to offer support in links and other aspects of computational thinking. So thanks, Brenda and Peter. So what do you do at home to encourage digital fluency and specifically computational thinking? Make it fun and engaging, while also being explicit about what your children are learning. Don't make it their work, but their play. Encourage pattern recognition, problem solving, both in and outside the house and across different areas. You don't need to be on the computer every minute to learn or practice this way of thinking. Design a route for your next walk in the forest. Try another one the next day, compare the time and distance. Sing a song that has patterns and replaces words or sounds in repetitions or loops. And I won't, since I can't see your face, I won't break into song this evening. But there's all kinds of examples of songs and stories that allow children, young children and older children, to recognize patterns and use patterns in art as well. So as we finish up, the nuts and bolts, or the bits and bytes, pun very much intended, of my talk are 3 takeaway messages: the why, the what, and the how. So why is digital fluency and CT important? It's very necessary. It's a basic skill for all aspects of society. Giving learners these skills and competencies allows them to make choices and decide what they want to do in life. The problems presented, the innovations to be created in this ever-changing digital world require citizens capable of working and playing fluently and critically in the digital environment. What we need to address can be captured in the 4 commonly described cornerstones of CT: the decomposition, the pattern recognition, the abstraction, and the algorithms. And how do we go about ensuring these competencies are addressed? I suggest we begin with teacher education in line with community and industry partners like those who just completed the CAN Code funding. Ensure the curriculum teachers are using is current and appropriate and relevant, with authentic problems to solve and audiences with which to share their solutions. Then capitalize on the natural curiosity and active learning of children at any age. Take a risk and start coding. So thank you for spending your time with me tonight. If you want to chat further, you can tweet or email at jmueller@wlu.ca. And I'll leave you tonight to ponder your wonders. And I'll see you soon on a coding site near me.
That was terrific, Julie. Thank you so much. It was very, very interesting to listen to, and I found lots of little points where I went, yes, 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 I get that. And nice to know our community is so rich, that there's so much out there. The library is quite active in doing lots of tech programming as well, and working with some of the same partners that you've mentioned, like Let's Talk Science. So that's awesome to hear. We don't have any questions up right now. We've got a great talk, and thank you. Question: is Menti available to anyone? You are muted,
I
sorry.
am muted. We had to do it once tonight. Yes, and Menti, I noticed Ketki was here as a participant, and one of our Master of Education students who introduced me to Menti. Very straightforward, open source. So just go to the website and just Google, even say, how do I make a Menti poll? And there's all kinds of different choices. You can register so that you have a Menti account, so it will save your presentations and the different polls and things that you create, so you don't have to redo it. But it is free. Most of the applications, have that stepping stone where you can play with it a little bit, and then if they're really good, they get you hooked, and and you add a little.
That's great. Thank you.
Very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie. That was amazing. Wow. You are so knowledgeable. My goodness. Really, very interactive.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. It was a great presentation, and I hope that you'll be able to join us for our next one, which is at the end of April. And we look forward to hearing that. There are lots of programs available through Waterloo Public Library, so please take a look at our website and our calendar of activities. We'll hope that we will see you again. And just a reminder, this recording will be available on the library's website in probably a week or so's time. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you, Dr.
All
Muir
right.
and Dr. Cantalini Williams for joining us tonight. It's been really exciting. Thanks
Happy
and take
coding.
care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.